just wanted to go over this breaking news story about the stimulus that might be happening. So the Democrats and Republicans recently couldn't figure out a proposal that the negotiations. So Trump actually just signed an executive order saying that they're going to make a unemployment benefit of $400 per week, and $300 will have to be paid by the federal government. 100 will have to be paid by states. Some of the states are already saying that they're underfunded as it is, and they were asking for assistance from the federal government as well. And the courts will probably try to put the legality of this in question. So it's hard for it to know if this will actually pass or not and actually come into unemployment pockets. What I just wanted to cover was my thoughts on this. So $600 a week in addition to the unemployment benefits that you're getting from the state, I think was probably a little bit too high. I know some people that are struggling not having their job. It does help to have that little bit extra, but there's a large percentage of the population that was unemployed actually was making more money by not working than they were working. So I think 400 a week does seem a little bit more reasonable, where a lot of the unemployed people will get very similar pay to what they were getting before. It is very unfortunate for people that are unemployed. Right now, a lot of them are struggling to pay the bills, and they might not be used to the sudden dramatic difference in the pay. So hopefully that they have emergency savings or other avenues in which they could actually pay for things. There's also in the executive order to delay eviction notices for tenants. If you are in the situation where you can't pay your rent and you're unemployed and you have a lot less pay, I would be proactive, work with your landlords, make sure that they're able to come up with some sort of settlement or a way to keep you in your house or apartment and whatnot. As for the situation with unemployment, I think it's probably best to have that emergency fund in place for the next time if you need it. Things like this could happen at any time. So I recommend 3 months of emergency funds. You don't necessarily have to have all 3 months in a savings account though. I recommend people putting a few $1,000s in savings and then start putting a Roth IRA, because in a Roth IRA you can take out money that you put in. So if you're in a situation where it's looking a little bit dire, remember this, and next time something like this might happen, have that extra cushion available. If you don't have that extra cushion right now, you can work with tenants, work with others, make sure that you're able to pay for the essentials, which is food, clothing, electricity, water, transportation if you need it. Look for different side hustles that you might be able to do. If it's a small, side business you might be able to run. If there's help that you could get from other friends, just doing yard work or, errands for other people that might need your help. I recently had that done with one of my friends to fix the steps on my back door, and he was very grateful to it, and we paid him an honest price for it. So look for different avenues that might help with these benefits. As for what's going to probably eventually happen, the Democrats are requesting $600 a week, which is what it was before. The Republicans initially started with $200 a week. They raised it up to $400 a week, but the Democrats and Republicans couldn't decide on a fair avenue between those two. So Trump is trying to essentially say that the Republicans wanted $400 a week. This could be a political reason behind it. It's hard to say if it's necessarily going to help for re-election and whatnot, or if it's just a way to help negotiations probably. I think eventually they'll settle on something between $400 and $600 a week. I don't necessarily know how long it will go. It might go into possibly the end of the year at this rate, with the numbers of COVID rising quite a bit in many states, and it's hovering at a pretty high level. As for a second stimulus, I think that is pretty certain to happen. It's pretty likely it'll be very similar numbers, if not identical, to the first stimulus was, which was $1,200 per person, plus $500 per child if you're a dependent under 18. So that's most likely going to happen. I predict it'll probably happen around middle of end of September, because I think that I think Congress will be able to actually settle on an agreement probably in the next 2 weeks or so. As for stock market, it's going to be hard to say what the market will do with this news. Look for opportunities that might have a downturn. If you have a decent emergency fund and savings available, I possibly might wait a little bit to see if there's a downturn and look for stocks with opportunities. You might also want to consider waiting until all the way in November when the election happens, because there could be some dramatic differences. Even if the economy looks very similar and the stock market looks similar, there'll be a lot of companies that might necessarily be lower depending on who's the president. I would consider precious metals like gold, silver, even mining companies that mine this gold and silver. You could look up a lot of different companies that are able to mine at a certain cost per ounce or pound. And then if the price of gold and silver is higher than that, it's pretty easy to see the benefits of that. With all this money that will be coming in, inflation will possibly get pretty high relatively soon, and soon could be a few years. So precious metals could be a very good opportunity. I currently have about 3% of my Roth IRA in gold, so that's something to consider. I might bump that up a few percent. So that's about it. If you have any questions or thoughts on this stimulus and executive order that Trump announced, please let me know. I left a link to the article from CNN down below on that. And have a good one, guys. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.